All right, let's get started. So welcome everybody to session 3 of the STAR program. So it's great to see so many people here again for another learning session. So before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that the University Health Network, that the University Health Network operates on sacred land for which thousands of years it has been the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. So I'd just like to share an event that's coming up next week from our office. It's a career panel on careers in industry. So if there's anybody here that's interested in learning more about careers in being a medical science liaison, working as a consultant at a strategy group, being a medical writer, or working as a research director for a startup, we have a great panel of people coming. So if you're interested, there is a QR code on the screen, but as always, this information will be emailed to you after the session. So just a few tips and guidelines for today. Just like in every other session, the slides and the recording will be shared with everybody by email. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and ask questions at any point. There's also there'll be a Slido at the end where you can input questions if you feel like doing it that way. But again, hearing you talk and raising up your hands is always encouraged. The second half of the session will include an interactive activity. So we hope everyone is willing to fully participate. It'll be lots of fun. So I hope everyone will be participating. And lastly, as always, this is a safe space, and we do ask that everyone remains respectful and follows the ORT's code of conduct. With that, over to you, Amanda.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name's Amanda, and I'm the manager of the Office of Research Trainees. We're going to talk a little bit about networking. My focus is definitely a little bit more on the online side and using LinkedIn. But first, I want to start with thinking about how you feel about networking right now. What are your thoughts? So you can use a QR code or go to slido.com and type in 1491409. So somebody's comfortable. That's good. That's good. Any other thoughts? See a couple people typing. You can also raise your hand if you, or just speak up if you want. So some people think it's scary, intimidating, nerve-wracking, hesitant, awkward. Absolutely. So what we're really going to be doing today is trying to give you some tips and tools so that you feel more comfortable networking. We're going to do kind of the presentation first to focus on, strategies for how to network and how to feel better about it. And then the interactive activity is really going to be for all of you to practice what you learn and network within the group. And so we really want you to be able to learn both the theory and put it into practice. So we hope by the end of today's session, you feel much more comfortable with networking. Ooh, I like. Okay. So let's start off by talking a little bit about networking and what it is. So I start with the dictionary definition, where networking is interacting with different people to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. So that's kind of a really boring definition, but what networking really is having conversations with people and trying to build relationships. And so when we think about networking, a lot of people think about needing to get a job and going to a networking event and trying to meet people so that they can help them get a job. But that's not actually what networking is. That's a one-way dialogue because they have something that you're looking for. True networking and really meaningful networking is a two-way street where you both are contributing to both a conversation and the relationship. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about how you can do that in a meaningful way. And I really want you to think about the reason for that. So if I were to meet somebody for the first time, we would chat for 15, 30 minutes, whatever, and then they asked me to refer them for a job. well, I don't actually know anything about that person just from what I know from a couple of minutes. I can't say anything about their skills or who they are at all. And so what you really want to think about is building real connections with people, genuine connections over time. And then those people are more likely to be able to refer you for jobs or help provide you guidance. And so we're really going to go through all of the stages of this. And really thinking about what you're already doing right now. Every single one of you is networking in your life. You just don't know it. You're all building relationships with the people around you. So it doesn't have to be as scary as you think. The other thing we want to emphasize here is that networking is important at all stages of your life. Don't wait until you're looking for your first job to really start actively networking, because that becomes really hard because you need something from that person and you become stressed and it can be a lot more difficult. Take this opportunity while you're at UHN to be networking the whole time you're here, building up those connections, maintain those connections, and then when you're ready to look for a job, maybe a couple years down the road, you'll have a really fruitful, meaningful network to build off of. So again, we'll talk about all of that today. So why is networking important? Now, there's lots of different things that your network can help you to do. You can tap into your network to get advice on different things. You can get support. You can use your network as a way to explore different career options. I know that was really important for me when I was doing my PhD. I went into my PhD not really knowing what I wanted to do after my PhD, which I don't recommend doing, but most people do. And so I really use my network to try and figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And it can be really powerful for that. It can also help you to identify or attain new or hidden opportunities. Sometimes they're just hidden to you. So you might not always be able to search everything on LinkedIn or on the internet to find opportunities. Your network can tell you about things that they've heard of. So you're able to find those things faster. And then sometimes there are jobs that are not posted anywhere. And the only way that you can identify those jobs or those opportunities is by talking to people and them sharing that with you. So it can be really a powerful tool for those hidden networks. Of course, if you're on the job market, it can also help you to find jobs. I know I recommend jobs to people all the time. If I see a job that I think fits well with somebody I know who's on the market, I will connect them with it. And you can also use your network to expand your network even further. So again, I hope you can see how these would apply no matter where you are in your career. I have my dream job, but I still network every single day because it's a powerful tool that can help me throughout my progression. And the importance of this really, really can't be understated. There's tons of different studies that all say different numbers, but basically, most jobs, around 60 to 85%, are found in some way through networking. So building a network can really help you in the job search whenever that comes to it. And again, it doesn't have to just be for jobs. It is a valuable tool for every aspect of your career. Okay, so we'll start with another poll of what would your network goals be right now? Sorry, this one? No, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. You all are more on top of it than I am. Thank you. So some of you already know the career path that you want to be in. You want to meet people in that area. I think that's great, especially if you want to work in healthcare and you're currently working at UHN, you can have the opportunity to meet those people. Preparing to look for jobs or opportunities in the future is a great way to use it as well. There's a bunch of people looking for jobs and opportunities now, which is fantastic. And it's okay to not know what you want to use networking for. I hope that we'll all use networking for all of these things in the future. Okay, go back. Okay. So now we get to the more practical part of how do you actually do the networking. And this is going to be different for every single person, depending on the traits that you have yourself, how comfortable you are talking with other people, how introverted, extroverted, how many people you already know, how connected your family is, all of the kind of factors that bring up who you are. And so I will say personally, I was one of the first people in my family to go to university. Never mind, I was the first person to do grad school. So I didn't start with a network. I had nobody in my network that I thought of at the time. And so I found networking really intimidating. I'm also a very introverted person. I don't like I really hate in-person networking events, if I'm being honest. Um, so I found networking really intimidating to start, but I got used to it over time by learning different strategies as well as just practicing a little bit more. And I think another thing that I learned at an in-person networking session once was about the power of organic networking. So if you think about where you are right now in your life, you know people from all aspects of your life. And so I have friends from childhood who lived next door to me growing up. And they were just my friends growing up, right? They were just the people we would play with every day. But one became a veterinarian and one became a naturopath. So just by being the person I was and being friends with those people, now I have a network that includes those different healthcare professionals. I didn't do that naturally. I mean, I didn't do that actively. That was a natural thing that I had from just being myself. And I think when you look at all of the people that are in your classes in undergrad or in med school or even in high school, all those people move on to different careers in exciting places. And so by just organically making relationships with the people that are around you that you come into contact, you're already building a strong network of people that are going to go into a lot of different careers that you can learn from and maybe leverage in the future. So this is what we think about is when we talk about organic networking, it's really building genuine connections and relationships with the people around you, your family, your friends, your classmates, your teammates, anybody that you interact with in your life. And I really want you to think about the fact that anytime you talk with somebody, that's kind of like an interview. They're interviewing whether they want to continue to have you in their life. If you have a conversation with a person on the street and it's a weird conversation, you're going to be like, well, I'm not going to talk to you again. But if you have a conversation with somebody and you really like it, you might exchange contacts or you might, ask to meet up again. And that's all networking. And it's all kind of like an interview process for how you are showing yourself to these other people. So even if you're just at UHN and you're emailing an admin or you're emailing somebody about a program, think about how you're leaving an impression on them. And if you leave a bad impression, that's not going to lead to a longer relationship with them and will not lead them to them wanting to help you in the future for something. So really think about building just genuine relationships, being yourself, being authentic, and being kind as you go through every step of your life. And here we want to think about, again, the power of time. So those friends that you made in high school in 10 years may have careers, or those connections that you make in undergrad in 5 years might have careers. So thinking about all the people around you and how powerful that will be as a network over time. So next is active networking. So something that you go out actively and do. And so this is a thing you can do with every person around you. So in your degrees, you can talk to your professors, your teaching assistants, the people in the labs with you or in your classes. When you're at UHN, it can be anybody in your current department or the departments around you, any person in the hallway, basically anybody that you meet. You can also choose to go to social events and meetups. We will have networking as part of this session. You'll be able to meet a lot of people here too, but you can also actively seek out different social events to meet people, especially ones that are maybe at UHN or at your university, so you can meet people who are also in similar areas of careers. You can join clubs, groups, professional organizations. For these, you can also take on volunteer roles or leadership roles so that you can build up that profile of how people recognize you as well and have take on a larger role. And you also attend career and networking nights, from which they may be offered at UHN or at your degree granting institution. So there's lots of opportunities of where you can just keep your eyes out open for different kinds of events to attend and then network there. And we're going to talk about tips on how to network once you go to an in-person networking event later. So another great thing that you can do is find a mentor, somebody either through your network or through UHN, maybe the grad student that's supervising you or the postdoc that's supervising you. And they can help provide you guidance through this process as well as introduce you to people. It can be very much easier, especially at a conference. I would find it was always better if I went with a senior person in the lab who could introduce me to the people they knew because it made it easier than me having to go up to that person myself. So finding somebody who is a little bit more either extroverted or more advanced in their career who will support you is really helpful. You can also ask your connections for introductions, and we're going to talk about how to do that with LinkedIn. But if somebody asks me if I can introduce them to my friend who's a naturopath, I would always be willing to do that. So it's a great way to expand your network. And then, of course, I really believe in the power of LinkedIn. I use it every single day. I think it's a really great tool for networking, but you can also use other social media platforms. So before we jump into really the approaches for all of these networks, I just want to give some general overarching tips. The first one being start early. I know that time, I already mentioned that time is important, but it's so important, so I'll say it again. Don't wait until you're looking for a job to start networking. That's the worst time to start networking. You really want to start early so you're building genuine connections, maintaining those connections over time, because like I said, when you are looking for a job and you just meet somebody, they're unlikely to be able to refer you because they can't speak to your skills or competencies or anything about you. So really try to start networking early and use it as a way to also fulfill multiple goals. So if your goal right now is for career exploration, you can build your network through that, but then later on, those people might be able to refer you to a job. And again, this includes connecting with all the summer students in this room you'll all go on to do amazing things and maybe can help each other out in the future. The next is to take initiative. I know that networking can be very intimidating, but people are really happy to help out and they're really happy to chat with people. We're going to talk a little bit later about informational interviews and how you can talk to people about their careers. And it can feel intimidating the first time you do it, but every person who has a job was helped by other people. So we're all happy to help. So try to really take that initiative and not be intimidated. If you do that, I recommend to be prepared. Always go into every networking event with an idea of what you want to accomplish, of who you want to meet. If you're going into an informational interview, think about the questions you want to ask ahead of time. The more prepared you are, the more you'll get out of the experience. And so if you're going to put the effort to show up to a networking event, you might as well make sure that you know the 3 top people you want to meet and what you want to get out of that. So you'll get as much as you put into it. The next thing is about providing value. Now, this can be really challenging or it can feel really challenging when you're in an early stage in your career, but meaningful relationships require reciprocal value. So them helping you, but also you helping them. And I will say, as a person who meets a lot of people, I do have people who are undergraduate or graduate students who I've met through networking who do provide me value, either by um, identifying an opportunity they think I would be interested in, sharing a contact that they think I would be interested in, sharing an article that they thought was really great that they thought I would be interested in. There's simple ways that you can provide value even at an early stage of your career. And very few people really do try to make that reciprocal relationship and provide value. So if you do that, you're really setting yourself apart. And the last thing is just be kind, recognizing, as I said, in every interaction that you have, that all of those things are mini interviews that are building up your network. And people only want to help people who are genuine, who are kind. So just be yourself. And it won't be that bad, I promise. Okay, so we're going to break this session up into different pieces. We're going to talk first about how to network online, then how to network at events, so in-person events. Then we're going to go into a little bit about if you're at an event, how do you introduce yourself? So we're going to talk about elevator pitches. Then we're going to talk about once you've met someone, how you maintain that relationship over time, because that's a really important piece that very few people do. And then we'll go into the interactive activity. So first off, online networking, it is one of my favorites. I said, especially, I am an introverted person, so I like online networking. But not just me, there are studies to back why the online networking is good. So this is a study data from Forbes that shows that online networking saves time. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do it at home. It saves money. Again, you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from home. There's more flexibility. Back in the day before, I'm making myself sound old, but back in the day before virtual informational interviews were popular, I used to have to go like drive to meet somebody at a coffee shop and like then they'd be at the wrong Starbucks or you'd be at the wrong Starbucks and like it was just so hectic and like really stressful. So you really can meet anybody in the world if you're doing informational interviews online or connecting with people online. It can lead to increased productivity and you have the ability to archive sessions. And that's one of my other favorite things about online networking is just having a record of how you know that person and the conversations that you've had with them. So there's a lot of different approaches of how you can do online networking. You can join networking groups or forums, and we'll show you some of those on LinkedIn. You can also attend virtual networking events. There's less of them now than there were during the peak of COVID, but there are still many that you can attend. You can set up virtual coffee chats or informational interviews, and we'll talk about how to do that in a bit. And of course, you can use social media platforms like LinkedIn. So next, we just want to check how many of you use LinkedIn before we jump in. Hey, I love seeing that lots of people use it. Amazing. Okay. So I guess I'm preaching to the choir here. People know that it's useful and they're using it, which is great. There's some people who don't use it very often or don't have one. We're going to start off with really basic tips on LinkedIn, and then we'll work up to more concrete strategies for networking. So if you already have a LinkedIn profile, bear with me for the first couple of slides where we go through the basics. I promise there'll be something in here for everybody. Okay. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, hopefully by the end of this, I will convince you that you should have one. But for those of you who already have one, great. I'm going to just go through a couple of the reasons why I like LinkedIn. So first of all, it can help you to maintain your current network. So it's a great, powerful tool for doing this because so I'll tell you a story. When I was in grad school, my supervisor set me up on an informational interview with one of her colleagues or one of her friends. And it was a wonderful woman who worked at an organization that I really, really wanted to work for in the future. And we had an amazing discussion. But then after that, I didn't keep in touch with her. 6 months later, I wanted to reach out to her again, and I went to email her, and her email didn't work because she had moved on to another company. And so that can be really challenging. But when you use LinkedIn, you have contact with them regardless of where they move in their career over time. So it's a great way to stay connected with people over a long period of time. It's a great place to meet new people and grow your network, and we'll talk about strategies for that. And it's also a really powerful tool for career exploration, and we'll go into that a little bit more too. But I really actively used LinkedIn during my PhD to look at other people's career paths, the steps that they had taken to different jobs, what skills they had that helped them get there. And it helped me to figure out which careers aligned with my values and the path that I wanted to take. So I highly recommend using it. If you don't have a profile, I recommend you having one. Get one, jump in and just start. It doesn't have to be a perfect profile from the beginning. Take the pressure off, just do a couple of sections and you can improve it over time, especially if you fill in the basic parts and start adding your friends and your family and things like that, then it gives you more time to build up the other sections before you start reaching out to people who you want to build your network with. All the tips I'm going to give you today are for the free version of LinkedIn. I think the premium accounts are like ridiculously expensive. I don't recommend them for anybody. There's only one case that I would say I think it's worth it. So don't bother with that. You can get a free trial at some point, but it's really not worth it. Okay, so just starting off from the very beginning, you start with your name. You can also add your pronunciation, which is a cool tool. You can also add your pronouns, and these are really great for if you're meeting with somebody that you've never met with before. I like to look at them up on LinkedIn first, check out the pronunciation of their name and their pronouns so I can make sure that I'm referring to that person correctly, which is great. Next up is picking up a photo. Obviously, you want to pick a photo of yourself. Pick a recent one that looks like you. Use a picture that's just of you. don't crop yourself out of a group photo or use a selfie because often you can tell even if you think you can't. Many recruiters will suggest that you should zoom in so at least 60% of the circle is filled with your face. That's like kind of a subjective thing, but you want to make sure that your face is prominent. And then the last thing is picking a photo with a simple or white background. I don't know if that really matters, but again, it's something I've heard from recruiters many times. It just helps to make your picture pop. There's lots of tools you can use online to remove the background if you have a picture you really like and you just want to make a simpler background. This is another opportunity if you don't have a great photo of yourself. We have a research day at the end of the summer. We'll have photography there. So if you want a photo taken of yourself on that day because you might be dressed up and you want a picture with your poster, that's a great option. Or there's lots of places outside of UHN that have really great backgrounds. You can pick a couple friends in the room and take pictures of each other. It can be really easy to get a good photo for LinkedIn. Next up is behind your photo, you have a background image. You can put up to 5 of them. I've just thrown some different options here. I have as my background photos the photo on the top left. When I was doing my PhD, I was really into science communication. So I would draw pictures, do agar art. So I would draw pictures with my microbes and either change up the color of the media or the color of the microbes to make fun images. So I don't know, I think that says something about me. So I include that as my background image. If you have photos or images from your research, like these fluorescent cells, that's a cool thing to put in your background. Obviously, make sure you have permission to use those photos, but I think it can be a compelling thing that when somebody looks at your profile, they'll know you do science. If that's not the kind of research you have or things, you can do anything, basically anything you want. I really love using Canva for this because even the free version of Canva provides templates that you can use. So I picked particularly here some free templates that they have, just something where you can put your name and your title or just use their templates of different pictures to make something compelling and pretty. And it doesn't really matter what this says. It could be like really basic, but it just makes your profile look more complete if there's something there. Next up is your headline. So this is the other piece underneath your name. When you're looking at people's profiles and you're searching from them, the only things you'll see really are a person's photo, their name, and their headline. So because of that, you really want to think about using your headline impactfully so that people will choose to click on your profile and learn more. So really making it impactful is important and kind of thinking about who you want to view your profile. So if you're looking for recruiters or employers or anyone really, most people aren't looking to connect with undergrads, you know? Not that you don't have a lot of value, but they're never looking, oh, I really want to meet an undergrad. So think about the other ways to describe yourself to make it more compelling. And don't feel like you have to limit yourself to just one. You can include more than one and separate them with these bars. So you can see I have multiple in my headline. Some are my title, some are skills that I think I have or functions of my role. So we'll go into some other examples of what you can do. You can be really descriptive. So while you're here for the summer, you can say that you're a research assistant. You can also make it more descriptive and say you're a neuroscience research assistant or a microbiology or a cancer biologist research assistant. Make sure that you're still being accurate. So keeping research assistant in there is good instead of saying a neuroscience researcher implies that you're later in your career. So make sure you're thinking about the implications of that. You can say what your major is, because that says a lot about you and your interests. If you volunteer anywhere, that's something to include. If you have a leadership position in any kind of organization, you can include that as well. So lots of different options here. Other things that I've seen is people include their marketable skills or their accomplishments. So if you know you have coding skills that you think people would be interested in, that's something you can write in, or anything, any skill set that you have that you're proud of. You're skilled at writing for multiple different kinds of audiences. That's a cool skill that could compel people to want to learn more about you. Or if you won a recent award or a prize that is prestigious or looks good, that's a great thing to include as well. So the sky's the limit here, but you really want to try to think about things that can help people learn a little bit more about you so that they'll be interested in clicking and looking at the rest of your profile. So next up is the About section, and this is a section that's underneath your headline. And so this is an opportunity for you to tell a story that sells yourself. This is a section that most people don't fill out because it's the one that seems less necessary. but it is really important because it's kind of like the professional summary or objective for your resume. It's the place where people can read 1 or 2 sentences or 3 or 4 sentences and learn about you and decide whether they want to continue and read the rest of your profile or resume. So if you can do a good job telling a story there, people will be more likely to want to continue to read on. And so really think about not just listing the titles or experiences you've had, but telling a story. And so we're going to talk about this again a little bit later of how you introduce yourself. But you can include 2 to 4 sentences to explain who you are and what your values or motivations are. You can also include 2 to 4 sentences that talk about some of your key accomplishments or skills that you're really proud of. Again, that tells you a little bit about yourself. And if you are looking for a job, that would be a key place that people can go to look at what your skills are to see if you're the right match for a job. And lastly, there's an actual part in the profile that allows you to add top skills. You can highlight up to 5 top skills. And the really important part about this is a section that is highly correlated with whether recruiters will find you. So in the LinkedIn Recruiter, where recruiters go to look for applicants, they can search within there for people that have specific skills. And the top way they do that is through these 5 skills that you list, because you're only limited to 5. So it's a key place that they look. So when you're on the job market, you want to think about the skills that you have that are transferable and that could help you get that job. Next up is your experience section, and this is very similar to what you would put in a resume. So I'd really kind of think of it like that. So you can add any experience you want, both paid, unpaid, leadership experiences. You can focus on putting your most recent and most relevant jobs first, and that can change over time as you have more experiences. If you've had only a couple of working experiences before, feel free to include anything in outside of science, even if you're looking in science, any kind of jobs you've had in the past. And then as you have more experiences, you might consider taking those off and focusing more on the ones that are relevant. But really what you want to recognize is that you have a lot more space here than you do in a resume. Resumes, you often want to keep them to 1 or 2 pages. So as you go along in your career, you often do have to make cuts on your resume and not include everything, but you can include more things here because you're not restricted by space. What you really want to make sure you do is don't just put the title, the organization, and the dates, because that's not going to tell anybody anything. You want to add descriptions to each one of those experiences exactly as I would recommend you do on a resume. So if you're not doing this on a resume yet, please consider doing it. Because again, you want the person to be able to see the important parts of what you did, what your role was, and what you learned from it. So highlighting things like transferable skills that you learned that you can apply to another job, or things like measurable outcomes, because that shows the impact of your work. So some examples here is you collected and analyzed data that contributed to a research publication in X journal. Now, all of you are going to collect and analyze data, so that will work really well. And obviously, it may not result in a publication, but you could say it resulted in a report or a research presentation, whatever it does. But this can be more compelling than saying I did a PCR and a Western blot and this listing out the specific activities that you did. Because if you're not applying for a job that's looking for PCR skills or Western blot skills, they're going to care more about the fact that you know how to analyze data, you know how to problem solve. So focus on those transferable skills. At the end of the summer, you'll present at the research day, and then you can say that you communicated your research through a presentation at that research day. That shows that you have communication skills and you've used them. If you won an award at the research day, you can also highlight that as well, because that shows that you have effective communication skills. And then think about how you would quantify the impact of things that you do as extracurriculars or in other aspects of your life. So if you gave a lecture to 30 people, include that number. Or if you created a social event and 30 people showed up, include that number, because that shows how the impact of the event was. If you ever get an award with money, a dollar amount, always include the dollar amount on your LinkedIn as well as on your resume, because again, that shows the extent of the impact. Okay, so now we've got you up to date. You have a LinkedIn profile. So now we're going to talk about how to build your network. So first, start with everybody you know personally, your friends and your family and everything like that. That gives you time to continue to refine your profile while you're building your network. Then think about people that are just one step further. So people that are in your classes, people that you've worked with in the past or that you currently work with, people that you know through volunteer, extracurriculars, basically anybody that you've interacted with, you can connect with them on LinkedIn. And that's normal. It's not unusual for people to connect. So you don't have to be worried about, oh, I haven't talked to them recently or something. That's fine. People connect with LinkedIn on LinkedIn all the time. I also highly recommend that you connect with people that you meet at meetings or at events. So even now, when I go to a work meeting and there's new people in the meeting that I've never met before, I'll always end that meeting by looking them up on LinkedIn and connecting with them. And I'll send them a message, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But again, that's the way to naturally build your network, because you're saying, I would really enjoyed that conversation and I'd like to be connected with you in the future. If you go to an event, same thing. You meet people and then you can connect with them to stay connected over time. Okay, so the next section is going to be about connecting with people that you don't know at all. So we just want to check, have you ever connected with somebody on LinkedIn that you don't know personally? Awesome, you're all pros. Okay, so it seems like many of you have, but some of you haven't, and that's totally fine. I hope by the end of this, I'll give you some tips for how to do it so you can feel more comfortable doing it in the future. But I will overall say it's not as scary as it seems. So if you've been holding off because you're nervous about it, don't. The worst thing that can happen is people won't respond. And that's fine. And it does happen when people are busy, so don't worry too much. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to make new connections on LinkedIn, and I'm going to show you a couple. This is what LinkedIn was made for. It's a platform that was made specifically for job searching and networking. So it's normal for people to meet people there, and there's lots of ways to do it. First way you can do it is asking your connections for introductions. So for example, Kevin Smith here is the president and CEO of UHN, if you weren't aware. Me and Kevin are second degree connections because I'm not connected with Kevin personally. Now he's my second degree connection because Kevin is connected to Andrew Lau, and you'll see it says at the bottom. And I'm connected to Andrew Lau. So Andrew is my first connection and Kevin is my second connection. Somebody who I have no common connections with would be my third connection. So let's say I was really interested in meeting Kevin Smith. I could go to Andrew and say, hey, Andrew, can you connect me with Kevin Smith? And if he felt comfortable, he could do that. And like I said, this is something that I do for people often. So it's a normal thing to do and can make it a little bit easier if you don't want to reach out to somebody directly, cold emailing them. You can ask someone for help. You can also start, if you're uncomfortable cold messaging somebody, you can start with people within your network first. So picking people that are at UHN or people who are at the school you are at or people who are alumni from your program that has that like common familiarity that you may have common connections, but also, you might feel more comfortable reaching out to a random person at UHN than you would reaching out to a random person at Sinai Health across the street. So I'm going to show you an easy way for how you can find these people. So this is just a quick demo. So when you're on LinkedIn, first off, it will automatically suggest people that you may want to know from UHN. But you can also go to UHN's page and see all of the people who work there. So first off, it'll show you first connections, but you can also click to see your second connections and then find the people who can introduce you to them. And then you can also go one step further and you can look at the third connections, and then you can search within UHN and find somebody who has the job you're looking for. So let's say I was interested in a coordinator position. I can search through all the people on UHN at UHN that are on LinkedIn who have that position. So it's a cool way to go through and look at all the people at UHN you could potentially connect with. The cool thing about being at UHN also is there's a research directory. So if you want to instead not connect with somebody on LinkedIn, but you want to connect with them by email instead, you can check the directories on the intranet and see if you can find their email address first. Or often, most of the time, people's email addresses are first name, last name at uhn.ca. So you can kind of guess And you can email them as well if that's something that you're more comfortable with than using LinkedIn. So, okay, that's within UHN, but now you can go a step further and connect with people from anywhere that you might be interested in. And my favorite way to do this is to really think about career titles and job titles that you're interested in, and then find people that have those positions. So again, I'm going to just do a quick demo to show you some of the ways that you can search for that. So in this example, I've used the term clinical research coordinator because lots of people are interested in those kinds of roles. So you can go in and at the top, you can search for clinical research coordinator. And the first thing that's going to come up is posts relating to clinical research coordinator. So you can see that I posted once about it before and it shows you other ones. But you can also switch over to the people tab and see all of the people. This includes first, second, and third connections. And then you can find somebody that you're interested in and look through their profile, learn about their skills, their career path, the different ways that they got to that position, and use their experiences as a way to learn more. You can also look directly at jobs and see the job postings in that area. You can learn a lot about positions by looking at the jobs. You can look in the groups for groups you can join to actively network. You can also look at different events. There are often many events that you can attend online or seminars where you can connect with people as well. So there's different ways to search so you can find people in that career area that you might be interested in connecting with. Okay, so now you've found somebody that you're interested in that you want to connect with so you can learn more about them. So I recommend always sending a personal note along with your request, as long as it's somebody that's outside of your immediate social circle. And so if you're on your desktop, it will immediately give you this pop-up asking you whether you want to add a note or not. So definitely do that. On mobile, if you're connecting with somebody, it's an extra step that you have to go to and to click to add a note. So just be cautious of that. There is a way to do it, but it's more, you're prompted to do it on desktop. A couple things to note here is adding a note substantially changes the chances of a person connecting with you. So I will say that I get, let's say, 50 connection requests every month, and I only connect with people who send a note. Like, only connect with people who send a note unless there's somebody I know or somebody who works at UHN. Maybe I would connect with them anyways. But what it really does is tells the person why you're connecting with them. Why are you reaching out to them? Because why would an average person connect with you unless they know why you want to connect with them? Gives you a way to tell them a little bit more about themselves and give that extra chance that they'll accept. So I highly recommend this. The only problem with this is that recently LinkedIn changed their rules. So free LinkedIn accounts are only allowed to send 5 personalized invitations a month. And so that is a challenge. That's the only the thing that I think now they've made it a little bit more useful to have premium. So I would say if you're at a period of time where you know you're going to go to a big networking event or you know you're going to be on the job search, then maybe invest in premium or use your free trial that you get every couple of months. But other than that, maybe just be selective, like the 5 people that you absolutely want to meet with the most, send them a personalized invitation and maybe wait till the next month to send the next 5 really important ones. So that's a caveat that is very recent that I hate. Okay. Now, when you're sending these customized invitations, they have a very short character count, so you really can't say very much. So you really have to be to the point, aim to be very professional and be direct. So I like adding information that you can refer to in the future or information that will help them decide whether they want to connect with you or not. So if you met them at an event, it's a great opportunity to say, hey, I met you at this event today. I look forward to connecting more. Or if you're reaching out to them because your friend referred you and suggested you reach out, that's a great thing to mention. If you're saying, I don't know, any kind of reason why you have for connecting with them, it's good to mention that there. Even if you just want to learn about their career path, that's a great thing to mention as well. And the other thing is you can also very clearly state from the very beginning why you're connecting with them. So if you want to have a chat about their career, mention that straight up front so they know what you're going into that connection for. So I'm going to give you an example here. So this is just like a quick one you could put together. You say, hi, my name is blank, and say a little bit about yourself. So say that you're an undergraduate student and what your interests are. Say, I came across your profile and thought the work you do is really cool. I would love to learn more about your career path and was wondering if you'd be willing to have an informational interview with me for 15 to 30 minutes. That's it. It's very simple, but it tells them who you are and why you're reaching out. And again, you'll have access to the recording and the slides if you want to refer to this. So next, informational interviews. So informational interviews are career chats that you can have with somebody. They're one time, usually. They can be as long as you want, but they're usually between 15 and 30 minutes. And they're a tool that you can use to learn more about a career path that you're interested in. So you're asking a professional different questions about their life. I'll tell you another story. When I was an undergrad, I was really interested in doing a program at Michener. And Michener is the education arm of UHN. I really like the idea that all of their programs prepare you for careers in healthcare without having to do lengthy like med school or dentistry degrees. So I was really interested in them at the time. And I decided that I absolutely wanted to be a cardiac perfusionist. So I told my co-op office at the time, and they had an alumni who was a cardiac perfusionist. And so I had a 20-minute chat with this person, and she told me all about her career and what cardiac perfusionists do and the environment that they work in. And in those 20 minutes, I knew 100% that this was not the right career for me at all. Like, this is not the skills that I had. It was not the type of environment I wanted to work in. They're basically the people in the surgeries that are like, their job is to keep your heart and your lungs alive. And like, that sounds a little bit too high stress for me, you know? So maybe that is a very critical role that maybe one of you would be interested in, but I knew after that that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So these chats can really be useful to get kind of a deeper understanding of a job, more than what you can learn from just learning about the career online. So I really want you to think about when you're going into these informational interviews, being prepared and thinking about questions of what you'd want to learn about. And the top things I think you can ask about is anything professional about their career path, their current job, their current company. So you can learn about the day-to-day activities in their job. You can learn about the way they got to that career, like the path they took, any trainings or experiences that they had that they think set them apart, or anything that they would recommend you doing. You can ask them for advice. Anything really professional. You want to stay away from asking personal questions about salary or things like that. But anything on the professional lens is fair game, and people are usually really happy to help. And just think about when you're reaching out to these people, you have the chance to reach out to anybody around the world that you're interested in, which is really cool. But you can also be meeting with people who are really busy. So respect their time, be prepared. That informational interview is also an interview. May not be for a position. Usually these are just for career advice. They're not actually about jobs, but it, changes how they'll feel about you. And so take your time to be prepared and respectful of them. And now I'll pass it to Jordan, and we'll talk about in-person events.
Awesome. So just like Amanda said, we've talked about LinkedIn, we've talked about informational interviews, online networking. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about networking in person. So networking in person, I feel, can be a lot more intimidating and scary than networking online, but these are really great opportunities to build strong connections with many different career professionals. So when you're thinking about going to these events, think about it from this perspective. These professionals are choosing to go to these events. They want to talk to people, and they're excited to talk to people. So think about that when you're going into there. I think that'll kind of alleviate some of the nervousness and anxiety kind of going into that. If these people want to be here, they want to talk to you, and they want to tell you about their jobs, and they also want to learn about you. So that's a really great mindset to go into these events. So let's start off with some tips about networking events. So first, just as we talked about for other styles of networking, being prepared is really important. So doing your research and figuring out who will be there, who do you want to meet the most, and checking out what they look like, checking out their LinkedIn profiles ahead of time, will really help you, and then also help you prepare some questions. People will really be impressed if you can show that you've looked them up, you've done your research, and you can really come up with a great question that way. And you can go below just that, that kind of surface level of interaction. Thinking about a goal and your goals for why you're there. What do you want to accomplish? So if this is your first networking event, maybe your goal is to talk to 1, 2, 3 career professionals. Or maybe you want to make a goal of a specific person to talk to. Maybe, Amanda's at this great event and you really want to talk to her and learn about her career. So your goal is to talk to Amanda. This will really help you stay focused when you're at this event, and will motivate you to start your networking journey and achieving your goal. And lastly, arriving early. It's always a great tip to be early, and it's great. It's a great thing to do. All right, so I'm going to put up a little scenario on the screen, and we're just going to go through it. Okay, so this is an example of a room that a networking event is perhaps happening in. On the bottom right-hand side is, of course, the door. On the top left-hand side is the snack table, and then there's people networking in different groups, different arrangements. Groups of 3, groups of 2, in a couple different formats, or someone standing there by themselves. Just to kind of get a gauge of the room. If I were to walk into this networking space, where would you want to go first? If I was probably here, I'm a very introverted person, so I may actually be the one standing there by myself until I, build up the courage to go talking to somebody. But just kind of get a show of hands. Where would you gravitate towards naturally in this room? Would anybody jump straight into the group of 3 and start talking? I agree. I see some no's. Completely agree. I'm with you on that one. The group of 2, the closed group of 2. Anybody? No. Still no. Still no's. How about the open group of 2? Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable going to an open group of 2 than a closed one. And then the person standing by themselves. Would anybody be comfortable walking up to the person by themselves? Awesome. There's also another great option where you can, go if you're still a little bit more nervous and this is your first event. The snack table is a great place to start. People love snacks. It's kind of maybe your guard's kind of down. You're standing there, you're grabbing a cookie, grabbing a coffee, and it's just a great place to kind of spark up a conversation. And I feel like that's a little bit lower stakes, a little bit lower stress. So maybe I would choose the snack table if I was standing in this room. But again, it's very much dependent on your personality and your level of comfort and experience at these events.
Stay at the snack table all
Good.
the whole time.
That's a good point. Yeah, start at the snack table and then you can make your way through. Good point. All right, so now you've found your way to find somebody you want to talk to, but now you need to introduce yourself to this person. You need to talk to them. So something you can do and think about is something called an elevator pitch. And so preparing an elevator pitch ahead of time is really great because you'll have a great way to introduce yourself. It's nice and professional, it's polished, and you'll have a really great first impression with a person. So the reason why they call these elevator pitches is that, elevator rides are typically pretty short, anywhere between 30 and 60 seconds. So it's really trying to introduce yourself, getting across your points and your goals, and telling somebody about yourself in a short period of time to really start in establishing that conversation and making that and starting that conversation. So you want to, in your elevator pitch or your introduction, you really want to tailor it to your audience. If you're talking to somebody about, I don't know, you're talking to somebody about your research. You want to tell somebody about your research, and you're talking to somebody who's directly involved in that same research area versus somebody who's not. You may tailor how you tell them about your research versus someone who's very familiar with the nuts and bolts of that research area versus somebody who isn't. So that, again, tailoring it to your audience is important. As well as you always want to, in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about this kind of in a scenario about running into Dr. Brad Wouters, who is the Executive Vice President of Research at UHN. And we're going to think about a scenario if you run into him into the elevator. He's a really friendly and really great person, so a great example of someone you can talk to. So I just do also want to encourage you to pay attention during this section, because this is really going to frame how our activity at the end is going to look, and how because you're going to want to, I guess, spoiler, but you're going to prepare your own elevator pitch, and you're going to practice it with others in this room. So this is a really great place where you can start thinking about it. All right. So when thinking about creating your elevator pitches, there are a few different points and things you want to consider. So what makes you unique when you're talking to somebody? What are you seeking from that person when you go up to talk to them to give them your pitch or your introduction? What can you offer to them? And what do you want the other person to remember about you? All things you want to consider. All right, so there's no right or wrong way or to an elevator pitch, but there is a little formula or a little breakdown that we'll share with you today. So you want to start with your introduction. Of course, you want to tell them your name and who you are. I think that's a pretty good first start. Next, you want to share your experience or your value that you can bring to that interaction. So explain what you do, excuse me, and the value that you bring and what makes you stand out or unique. Then you want to move on to your goals, which is essentially a statement you want to share with this person or a question that you want to ask them to get that conversation flowing. So as I mentioned, we just ran into Dr. Routers in the elevator. So we want to now introduce ourselves to him. So here's a little scenario of that. So breaking it down into different parts. In this scenario, I am a summer student in Dr. Linda Penn's lab. So I would say, hi, my name is Jordan, and I am a summer student in Dr. Linda Penn's lab at Princess Margaret. Experience or values that I'll share is I'm working on a project which aims to better understand how MYC contributes to cancer progression. And thinking about the goals, I want to let you know that I'm really enjoying being at UHN, and I hope I will have a career at UHN in the future. So again, my goal here is that I'm telling Dr. Routers that I'm enjoying being at UHN and I'd like to work here in the future. So just stepping outside of UHN and you're at a networking event and you're talking to a career professional who again may not be quite as familiar with you're not in the same company or maybe not working in cancer research like Dr. Routers is a cancer researcher. You can frame it in a different way for your different audience. So hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm an undergraduate student at U of T. I have a strong passion for cancer research and have been working in a research lab at Princess Margaret to develop my cancer research skills. I'm currently exploring careers in cancer research and would love to hear more about your path to your current position. So then in this case, you're assuming you're speaking to somebody who still may be in the realm of cancer research or in research kind of in maybe more generally, and you want to learn about what they did and how they got there. Okay, shifting gears and moving on a little bit. You've introduced yourself to somebody, and now you want to ask some questions and keep that conversation going. So we highly recommend that you ask open-ended questions. So this will allow conversations to flow as they can't just leave you there with 1 to 2 word answers. You can really get that conversation flowing. Some examples of that could look like, so instead of saying, what do you do? So instead of saying, what do you, they just tell you their title and that's kind of how it ends. You can ask them, what was your journey to your current position? This prompts, again, more discussion and more discussion around that topic. So you get more than just that. I'm a medical science liaison, for example. So again, just to further prompt you with some additional open-ended questions and keep those conversations flowing, some things you could ask could be, what does a typical day look like? What is your favorite part of your job? And what kind of projects are you currently working on right now? Again, these are just examples, and it's always based upon what you're interested in and what you want to learn from that person. But again, just highlighting the importance of asking open-ended questions and keeping that conversations going and building those connections. Going beyond just wanting to learn more about that person and their job, you can also ask questions that showcase your knowledge or gain knowledge on maybe the company or more generally the field that they're working in. And you can do this again. This is also when you're preparing for events and determining who you want to talk to. That also showcases that you've prepared and also helps you again build those connections and having those conversations. People, of course, will be impressed. I think that you have looked them up in advance and you're interested in showcasing your knowledge and excitement to learn more about what they do. So just sharing some additional examples here. So you've done some research and you want to talk to this one person from this company. So I saw that you previously worked at X company or in X position. How did you make the transition to your current position? Again, that's fully showcasing your knowledge, fully showcasing your interest in that person and in that field. You can also ask them things about, if you want to learn more about their company, you can ask them about recent products, if there's any discoveries or any pieces of news from the company that you've read or some tidbits of information you want to learn. Okay, we've introduced ourselves, we've started those conversations, but now we want to maintain those conversations. So you can maintain the conversation just by, there we go, just by being curious, genuine, and being engaged in conversation. So authenticity is key to building those relationships. So if people feel like you're really not really being genuinely curious or just genuine in those interactions, they may just seem less excited to want to maintain that connection or even build that relationship with you. So genuine curiosity and just being yourself is one of the, I think, one of the most important things. You want to actively listen and what they're saying. Don't cut them off. Don't just, if they're speaking to you and you're thinking about, the next question or the next tidbit of information that you're looking for, have that actively listen, nod, smile, just show genuine interest. It all comes back to that first point. And then you also want to ask relevant follow-up questions. Again, that also shows that you're listening and engaging in that conversation and also directing the conversation that is relevant both to you and also to them. And then you also want to be aware of your nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is actually really huge. The verbal communication is actually quite a small part overall to that whole interaction. If you're standing there with your arms crossed and you look unhappy and you just look and it's just not, you're looking not super relaxed, that also can really impact how that relationship's built. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Sometimes there's like some unconscious ways that people are moving or sitting, that type of thing. But just being aware of that and making you aware of that is also, I think, is a great thing to consider. Oops. Here we go. So at some point you do have to wrap up the conversation, and it's also important to be respectful of those people, their time, just because you can, even if you really want to speak to them and keep going and keep talking, because you're so interested, which is amazing, you do have to respect their time. So at some point it is time to start, wrapping up the conversation. And just a few tips around that include, you want to thank them for their time and ask them if they can stay connected. If you're interested, you do want to connect with them to further that relationship and that connection. Then after you've thanked them, you can exit the conversation. And another good tip and something that you can do is after you've had that conversation, write down a few notes, and so that you have some ways to reference their conversation, and you can remember if you're talking to like 3 or 4 people at an event, sometimes you don't want to get that mixed up. And I think if you're mixing up conversations between people, that might not have the best impression if you want to maintain those connections. So great tip is to take notes to remember who you're talking to and about. Okay, so now just kind of to end this off, we're just going to talk about following up. If you want to keep talking and maintaining that connection, the follow-up is a crucial part in this whole process. Time, as it always comes, as we've mentioned, time is important, and that includes following up. You want to be fairly prompt with that follow-up, somewhere between 24 to 48 hours, and you can send them if you've exchanged email address. This is a great place, or again, LinkedIn is another great place, as we've talked about, to follow up. In that follow-up, you want to thank them for their advice. Something else great to do is, again, referencing some of those specific things from your conversation to make that follow-up more personable and more memorable. Again, if you took notes, this is a great resource that you can use in your follow-up. And then at this point, this is when you can, to further that connection and further that conversation, you can ask them if to learn more, if you want to have that informational interview like we talked about, or if you're looking for a new connection or somebody in their company or something like that. And then maintaining your connections is also important. You followed up, you've made this connection, but if you want to keep talking, you need to maintain that connection. And this is often one of the hardest parts, because it requires work over time. So to do this, it's important to stay in touch with them over time, and you can And to do this, you can check in periodically with them with messages to remind them, of you and to help maintain these relationships. So this can be checking in over a period of time, 6 months or so, just to wish them, and it could be small things like, wishing them a happy holidays, giving them, giving a life or career update to them, or asking for more questions or for some more advice. Again, just maintaining, continually following up will just keep them in your mind, keep you in their minds. Sorry. Again, which is a great thing to do. You also want to try and offer reciprocal value. I know we talked about this already, but just reminding you that these relationships are reciprocal, and it's a one-way streak. So if you're able to, it's not a one-way streak, sorry. So if you're able to offer reciprocal value, again, it's a great way to maintain that connection. So again, as we've talked about here, I just wanted to reemphasize a couple more points that LinkedIn is a really great tool for maintaining your network. And so again, to keep that another way, rather than just messaging them, you can use LinkedIn to maintain that connection. You can, engage with their content. If they're posting something on LinkedIn, liking it, commenting on it will, again, prompt a notification on their page, which will then they'll see your name and say, oh yeah, I remember speaking to this person about that one time. It's nice to see that they're, interacting with my posts. Again, every now and then, shooting them a short message, whether it's instead of something, a big long update, a small messages is always nice. Again, with those updates that we talked about, wishing them a happy birthday. I think LinkedIn tells you when it's their birthday, just kind of like Facebook. So it's a way it's an opportunity to maintain that connection. And then if they decide to post a career update on their LinkedIn, and it pops up and say, hey, I've changed positions, this is another great place to congratulate them and remind them of you. And also, you can also consider being active on LinkedIn, and you can talk about different things, anything that you're interested in. You can post, different highlights or events or opportunities that you've come to, like at the end of this year, at the end of this program, I should say, there'll be a research day. If you present, take a picture next to your poster, post it on LinkedIn. You can, tag different people. You can tag supervisors if they're on LinkedIn, lab mates, us, any way that you can to showcase your work, and also maintain some activity on LinkedIn. Again, sharing updates on awards that you've won, or any articles that you enjoyed reading. Okay, so now we're hitting towards the end of our kind of more presentation style. So I just wanted to take a quick poll on just how everyone's feeling at this point. So again, going back to the Slido, answering this quick poll and just gauging to see how hopefully you've found this learning session so far. So on a scale of 1 to 5, if you could rate that from very unhelpful to very helpful, that would be very helpful to us because we love the feedback to learn from how everyone's receiving it. So I'll leave this for a couple seconds, and then the next part's a Q&A. So if anyone has questions, we can start that now, and then we'll move on to the activity.
You all come up to us during the networking activity and ask questions.
Absolutely. Everyone good? He's shaking head. Yeah, okay. I think that's the second. No, don't answer that one yet. So if nobody has any questions right at this moment, again, you can come to us during the networking event or come up to us after. We're happy to answer those questions. But what we're going to do now is our little activity. We have about 20 minutes left, so we'll have a few rounds of this. But as we've alluded to a few times, you'll be preparing elevator pitches and practicing those with each other and networking with each other. So what you'll be doing is practicing your elevator pitches by introducing yourself, the experience and values, and your goals that you would have, assuming you're at a networking event with people you've never met before. We're going to do about 3 minutes per group, just so it's 30 to 60 seconds, and able to move around a little bit. And then if there's time at the end, we'll come back for a short discussion. So what we're going to do first is just that, because I know we're in a lecture theater, so it's a little bit harder to move around. So just for our first, I guess, 2 interactions, you'll just talk to the person to your right and then to your left. And if if you're not, and if you're not next to somebody, maybe you'll have to scooch over to someone.
You can't all point to the person on your right. You have to swap.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're at the end of a row, either behind you or in. So just take the opportunity to do this. I know if you know the person next to you, great, still practice. And then after you've gone through the people that are in your vicinity, we'll get up and we'll walk around. And I encourage you to talk to somebody you haven't met before. And yeah, but the one, you want to do that one?
One more thing before we get started, I just wanted to give one more tip. So if you want to connect on LinkedIn with people that are in this room today, a great way to do that is if you have LinkedIn on your phone, if you have the mobile app, you can generate a QR code. So if you go to the search bar in your profile, there will be a button for a QR code and it'll give you this QR code and you can swap between people. So if you show somebody your QR code, there's then a button to press scan and you can scan the other person's. It brings your profile up to them so that it makes it easier to connect and then the person can accept. So it's a lot easier than spelling out your name to people. So in a room like this, I think it's a great way to connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn quickly if you have it on your phone.